Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here. Today we've got another one for the DMs. What's a backstory trope that you ban and or can't stand in general? Leave yours in the comments below. My personal biggest is amnesia, unless the player gives me something to work with. Mostly because it's lazy, and amnesia doesn't mean DM writes my backstory for me, like most people who use it seem to think it does. For example, I have a character in one of my games who is a fallen angel and who is cursed with amnesia when her god cast her out. She still has a backstory, NPCs, allies, friends, motivations, etc., but doesn't remember why she has these unexplainable divine powers. That is the kind of amnesia I can get behind, but the I didn't want to come up with a backstory, so amnesia kind of shit, that infuriates me. It is the peak of laziness, and I outright ban it in almost all cases. So what's everybody else's nah fam backstory? I ban anything that might encourage the player to actively work against the party or be a general nescience, which means a lack of knowledge and awareness. I think they meant to say nuisance, including and especially multiple personalities. I also discourage the party from keeping something that would be a big reveal because it's usually to a disappointing response from their fellow players. So, a lot of the stuff I've noticed people complaining about, I think, can be boiled down to this. There's a difference between a character having a trait and just wearing it like a hat, and that trait informing who the character is, the difference between an unremarkable edgy rogue, angsty tiefling, or tragic orphan backstory type character, and the all-time greats, the ones that engage us and that we remember for years, even when some of those amazing characters use the same tropes as the bad ones. Now, let's take a look at some of those tropes and examine some positive examples that I like. For an amnesiac example, Molly Mock from Critical Role Campaign 2. He has an amnesia backstory where he knows nothing about his past, but this greatly informs who he is at the start of the campaign. He wants nothing to do with his past and avoids learning more. Instead, he has a lot of thoughts about being ethereal and how to have a good time with the life he has now. For the angsty tiefling, Panic Grimtongue from The Unexpectables. He has a lot of bad feelings about his tiefling heritage, his awful childhood, and his time living on the streets, but he doesn't just bemoan it as an angsty tiefling Hatwearer would. Oh no, he works through it with the help of the friends he finds amongst the Unexpectables and those surrounding them in Alvest. I don't think it's necessarily that the tropes are inherently lazy, although I do agree that yes, they often lend themselves to players who only want to put in the bare minimum effort. However, like many things, it's in the execution. Instead of just banning a backstory archetype, I would try to work with the players to flesh it out, to help them roleplay their characters better. Although, if you've tried that already and are just sick to death of those tropes, I won't disagree with banning either. Also, I would like to emphasize that a backstory detail deliberately not being that thing that defines them is a good way to do it. That character trait is still informing the character, after all. I don't ban anything. I weaponize it, and my players know it. And I think the little masochist inside them wants to keep seeing it. Okay, jerkwad, you want amnesia? You want me to build your character's life for you? Sure. I will break your heart by the end of it. You'll wish you had amnesia. You want to be a double agent? Oh, sure, no problem, 00, dumbass. Whoops, looks like your commander has written you off as compromised, and there's no way to come back from that, no sir. So the party is now the only thing standing between you and a noose. Oh, you want to be a nobleman? Okay, hoity-toity, rich and poity, sure, but you're either responsible and don't waste your family's money on your adventuring kick, or you're disgraced and deposed. And if you don't start that way, by the gods, you will be. Have fun being rich for 3 levels. I like this guy. I'm guilty of the amnesia thing, but it was an anime-themed D20 game where everyone else's backstories had a lot going on, so as a new player, I figured I should stay out of the way. Everyone hated my character because it was boring, and the DM sentenced me to a fate worse than death with my backstory reveal. all by unawakening me from a human back into a rabbit, irreversibly deleting all the knowledge and personality I'd acquired over the course of the game. I left the group and never touched 3.5 again, instead homebrewing a sci-fi system from scratch. I still distrust anyone who plays a spellcaster to this day. Anyway, my DM pet peeve is characters older than they look, especially elves and human-formed dragons. Orphan backstory, or severe trauma that leads to homicidal acts, severe psychosis, or dissociative identity disorder. I've seen it far too often in characters. Some go as far as the whole split personality trope because they get tired of their own character. It's kinda hard to be a DM when suddenly a character goes from a headstrong man-hating butch to a notice me senpai timid girl who aspires to be a healer. Any backstory that involves severe psychosis, that they're somehow hiding from the party, up to and including murdering innocent civilians off-screen during downtime without the party realizing they're harboring a serial killer. Oh, I see this a lot with newer players, and I mean a lot, probably because a lot of people love watching those serial killer shows and want to play it out in-game. To their credit, most of them are fine with being discovered eventually and killed or turned in by the party, after which they make a new PC, of course, but it's still weird and disruptive to me. It can cause long-term party issues, and other players, not PCs, but the actual players at the table may not be cool with it when they find out. I used to be the king of an ancient kingdom, and I was so powerful I ripped nations to shreds. These type of backstories cause, in my experience, they've tended to be used by people who use this backstory to justify main character syndrome and demanding NPCs be okay with being killed because that's what my character would do. I've done this 3 times, I think. One was a very true neutral kind of person who only partly remembered their past and was very out of it a lot of the time. And they made mistakes because the present was much different from the time he remembered. Like, you remember the royal family from 500 years ago, but forgot that they were ousted 300 years ago, and addressed the new family as the old. A very accidentally famous kind of character. The second was a retired adventurer who had quit years ago and sold all of his stuff, but in later life the IRS had caught up with him, and so as a 70-year-old he had to go out and adventure again to try and cover his tax bill. The last one was an ancient evil that had been sealed away and was set free by the party, but it was weak from being sealed away, and while its powers returned, it decided to help the party because they freed it. I generally really dislike backstories that have absolutely nothing to do with the setting of the campaign and are purely the result of the player wanting something wacky, completely disregarding the story they're going to be a part of. One of my tables picked this up as a way to try and curtail that a little. There are 4 questions everyone has to answer about their character at 0 session, and every character has to have one personal relationship within the party. Like Luke knows Obi-Wan, Han and Chewie know each other, Obi-Wan knows Leia, that whole kind of thing. I've found that it really gets the players involved in workshopping characters together, and it's been refreshing to see the results. Less problematic, edgy BS, less Batman from Wish.com, where's the Joker? Less chaotic means I have to be a little careless with life, etc. It gets everyone invested in each other from the start. When your character was a child, what is one thing they dreamed of one day doing? I give the real-world example of my childhood desire to be on Legends of the Hidden Temple. Oh my god, yes! Or to climb the tallest tree in the campground. Where is the safest place your character has ever been? Or you may share a memory of an ideal moment in their life. Something truly terrible will happen to your character and will be their own fault. What is that truly terrible thing? We usually change this one up depending on who is running and what the flavor of the game will be, but one example from our post-apocalyptic weird war game, it's been 5 years since the events that ended the modern world. It's been 1 year since the establishment of the Plymouth settlement. It's been 1 week since the last caravan departed for supplies and came back with other survivors. What has happened this week in your character's life? Usually, like super rich noble types like to child of lord or something, that's fine, but straight a king or ruler of the entire land is a no, because they will go, I have that money, so I can buy whatever I want. See, I once basically let a player have this as a 100 gold weekly allowance. The stipulation I made is that they have to spend and live like they were a noble, so that means no saving up for magical items. It worked out great as the player went all in. Bought a horse so they wouldn't have to walk during an escort mission, and the horse cost more than the mission paid total. Spent an awful lot in brothels and staying in nice places. It worked out well and resulted in many great role-playing moments. Oh no, bring those ones on. Plenty of opportunity for story hooks when they go home to find their estates have been seized because their parents actually squandered everything and had been living it up on borrowed money. Or the guy that overthrew you in your negligent absence has declared you a traitor and put a bounty on your head. Oh no. If you try to give yourself an easy win button with your backstory, you'd better believe you'll regret pushing it. There's a way to twist any story to fit your narrative, if you look hard enough. It gets easier with experience, but there are also a ton of resources like in this subreddit, or the MrRipper subreddit, that can help. One of the best ways to learn is by seeking advice. Chances are someone else has come across whatever situation it is you're trying to deal with. If nothing else, they might be able to share a "definitely don't do it this way" story. I do try to remain respectful of my players' intent, as long as they aren't trying to cheat their way through. I'd like to call this one Dead Kid McNowife. God damn it. The loner who lost everything. He's a killing machine in war, but a gentle man to his beloved child and beautiful wife, who knows him as a kind soul. But no more! Now there is only pain, and his training and the lust for vengeance. Bros, I loved the Punisher too, but chill out. Here's one that I straight up ban. I am basically God! But this campaign starts before level 4. Backstories entirely, unless you give me a valid reason why you are now a level 3 and lower adventurer. Say I was polymorphed by the big bad evil guy and I want my power back. Also, I'm not a fan of the edgy backstory cliche volume 1. Because it's the one that makes it difficult to work with other people. If you really want to be generic, at least don't be a pain in the ass to the party. And if you really want to be a pain in the ass to the party, at least be interesting. Come on, Peeves, we're looking at you. Also, I don't ban, but I restrict evil backstories because I know these only work with parties who have enough chemistry to make it interesting instead of tedious. Amnesia backstories, I can work with, as long as the player gives me some tent poles, so to speak. Yes, it's more work for me, but if I can at least have something to work with, it'll still be fun. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course, check back often. We have tons of shorts, tons of videos, and you never know what else might come out of the woodwork. And of course, DMs, tell us about a backstory trope that you ban or can't stand. All the love, we'll see you next time, bye for now.